They're getting better. My saving grace is Caitlin. Thank goodness she does all the
They'll still try to make that.
The other ones are just like, family issues.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mount Olive Township Workshop and Council meeting for December 19, 2017. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence for all the men and women that sacrifice and serve us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
Yes. According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda.
Here.
Mr. Ferrante.
Here.
Mrs. Labow.
Here.
Mr. Mania.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Mr. Roman.
Here.
Mr. Nacastro.
Here. First item, we have quite a few presentations, Mayor.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Last meeting of the year. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the fact that Mayor Frank Drutzler from Morris Plains is here tonight, former freeholder, and just somebody who probably mayor for life in Morris Plains as long as he wants to stay. Truly has done a great job on behalf of his community and on behalf of Morris County, and somebody who I have looked at as someone that I have tried to emulate as I've gone forward in my position here. Tonight we're going to start with the proclamation to honor Mike McCourt. Mike, do you want to come up? Yeah, come to me. Otherwise, you'd be standing like an island unto yourself. If you don't know Mike, he owns Amish Mike's, which is on Route 46. And Mike has been a great asset to the Mount Olive community. Anytime that we have needed something, Mike has been there for the community. So tonight, from the Office of the Mayor, I have a proclamation honoring Mike McCourt of Amish Mike's, Mount Olive Hardware. Whereas Mike McCourt of Amish Mike's, Mount Olive Hardware has been a longtime business supporter and donor to Mount Olive Township, the Recreation Department, and the sports associations of Mount Olive. And whereas Mike McCourt symbolizes a businessman who honors the community he does business within, and whereas Michael McCourt has donated a gazebo structure that was incorporated into the September 11th memorial site at Turkey Brook Park, and whereas through this donation he has shown a continued willingness to assist, donate, and honor as a member of the Mount Olive business community, and whereas Mount Olive Township wishes to properly recognize and commend Michael McCourt on the generous donation and everything else that you do for the town. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Robert Greenbaum, Mayor of Mount Olive Township, do hereby proclaim December 19th as Michael McCourt Amish Mike Day in Mount Olive Township. Congratulations. Yes. Okay, I have one other proclamation this evening. Frank, do you want to join me up here? Why don't you come up? We've discussed this at the council level, but I'm not sure that we actually discussed it in front of such a large audience. There was a family in town, a woman in town, who was unable to care for her yard as the leaves started to fall. And she made a request on my Facebook page to see if there was anyone who could help her to maintain her yard, and up stepped the Karosky family. Mike is a police officer. Is he a lieutenant? Yes. Lieutenant in the Morris Plains Police Department. Mike and his family, his sons, went out and took care of all of the yard work that needed to be done, actually adopted the woman as a member of their family. And that's really what Mount Olive community is all about at the end of the day. So at this point, we want to call the Karosky family up and present them with this certificate of appreciation. And what a great what a great lesson for all of Mount Olive that this family did what needed to be done for somebody. Thank you so much, Michael.
Our slogan at Mars Plains is the community of caring, and certainly Mike epitomizes that, and at all times, not just when he's a police officer in our community, but you can see what he does, and we're proud of him, just as proud as you are here in this community, and I'm sure you'll see a lot of other things that he will do and his sons and wife will do for the betterment of Mount Olive. And on behalf of the community of caring, I just want to wish everybody a good holiday season, and thank you for honoring Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't introduce two council people that are here, Sue McCluskey and Jason Carr. So,
Thanks, Fred. Okay. I know that the Board of Education does their thing in terms of recognizing those sports teams that have successful years, and now it's our turn to do the same. I can tell you without any hesitation that as the sports teams in the high school do their things, it reflects on Mount Olive Township, so that your efforts, your perseverance, and the way that you go about conducting your sports is admirable, and we wanted to recognize some of the sports organizations this year at the high school which won their conferences or beyond that. So we're going to start with soccer. Grizz, do you want to come up? I don't know who's here from soccer besides you, but we have certificates. Congratulations. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the year that boys soccer had this year?
My pleasure. This year, we had a great season. We are the defending our conference championship for the 5th time in a row. So it's been remarkable strides that we've made as a program during these past 5 years. And the players here tonight were instrumental in keeping our success. Got a lot of 3 seniors and 1 junior here, but they're part of the reason why we're so successful this year. And it's just been a great pleasure to coach them.
Want to call the people up that are here?
Sure, we have our junior there, CJ Halter. We have Mateus Amorim, who was 2nd team All-Conference in all Morris County. Our senior captain, Jared Savastano, who was 2nd team All-County, 1st team All-Conference, and All-State as well. And lastly, RJ DeZima, who was 1st team All-Conference, 1st team All-County, All-State, and concludes his career at Mount Olive High School being 3rd all-time in goals scored. Wow.
Congratulations, guys. Really best of luck in your future step. Okay. Next up, I have field hockey, and that would be Coach Livingston. Congratulations. I know it must have been difficult in that the field was under construction all year, so.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your year?
We were a 3rd time conference champions this year, and not only carrying the tradition of being 3-time conference champs, we also, within our conference, were undefeated this year and last year. So this was our second time having the conference being undefeated without even letting up a goal. So against all of our 4 teams, playing them both twice. So that's 8 games going, undefeated without any goals let up. We had a very strong core senior group, a core defense, clearly, holding 9 shutouts. And we are just looking forward to next year, carrying on this tradition that we have started.
Who's here tonight for the
Oh, unfortunately, nobody's here tonight.
certificates and thank them?
Thank you very much for honoring us.
Thank you. Coach Bear, saw you before. Girls cross country. Yes.
I could talk for about a week about them. You probably see them on the streets just as much as I do, running around the town. We like to say we run this town. The girls were conference champions of the American division of the NJAC. This was the 5th conference championship in the last 7 years. One of the girls, Lauren Ginefra, was a freshman the last time we won, and she's a senior this year, so she's a 2-time conference champ. They also won the Roxbury Fastest 4 race, Garrett Invitational. They were 2nd at the county championship, 2nd at the Group 4 Section 1 championship, and 9th overall at the Group 4 championship. They had a great year. I'll call them up.
Yes, please.
Okay, we have Shayna Mulligan. Laura Green. And Lauren Ginefra.
Don't worry, I know the feeling.
That's great. Okay, last but not least for this evening, I'd like to call up Coach Clowers and to talk about the girls' volleyball team, which once again was just tremendous. I was fortunate enough to follow the run at the end. It ended a little early, but that's the way that the ball bounces sometimes. But your girls had a tremendous year and a tremendous year last year, and we're very proud of the volleyball team. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
yes.
First off, I'd like to say that these are the greatest bunch of girls I've ever coached, and all credit goes to their parents, so I really would like to give them a round of applause. This group has won 4 conference titles in a row and has won 2 county titles in a row. Their record over the last 2 years is 52-6. This year we won the Pleasant Valley tournament for the first time, won the silver bracket at the Garden State Challenge, which had some of the best teams in the tri-state area. In our pool, we encountered 2 state champions from New York, Cherokee from South Jersey, who was the runner-up in Group 4, and Musselman, who is one of the top teams in the state of West Virginia. I can't tell you how much I miss not having the opportunity to practice with you guys. I go home and just stare at the mirrors and look at the dog and hope that she doesn't try and jump on me. But you guys have really been tremendous, and it's been my extreme pleasure to coach you guys. So I'll call them up now. Sophomore Tristan Adams. Junior Isabella Salafia. I didn't do it alphabetical. So, Junior Charlotte Salafia. Junior Mackenzie Laidlow. Junior Jessica Lidwin. Senior Lauren Miller. And the last 2 players have won 78 games over the last 2 years. Senior, 2nd team all conference, 3rd team all group 3, Brittany Rivera. Okay, this may take a while. 4-time all-conference player. This year, she was first team all-conference again, first team all-group 3, first team all-state, NJ.com Player of the Year, Under Armour second team All-American, and she is a nominee for the Gatorade Award, and she will be attending Mercer University in Macon, Georgia next year on a volleyball scholarship. She is the career leader in digs and kills, single season record holder in digs and kills, and anything that her sister did, she did better. Annie Carl.
Yes. I get to stand next to him. Congratulations to everyone this evening, and thank you all for making Mount Olive proud. We're proud of what you accomplished this year as well. This is the time, if anybody would like to leave, now's the time to leave before we get into the meeting. Otherwise, you're stuck for a while. Thank you all for coming, and have a great holiday. Congratulations.
Yeah, please.
Go to Friendlies, okay? Here's one for your mom and your dad. Friendlies, you go get an ice cream. I don't know if Friendlies
You couldn't make it. You couldn't make it. Yeah, but
It's the third week, right?
Yep, 17th.
That's the 17th.
Yeah, please.
Take care. Good job.
Okay. Next item up for discussion, Andrew, we have the community video program?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Several years ago, I was approached by a company to provide a community video for my prior town. It never came to fruition, but I figured I'd bring it up for your consideration. The company is called CGI Communications. They have a long relationship with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. They've done these community videos throughout the country, as well as for townships in New Jersey as well. In essence, it's a private-public partnership. They offer a free video for the town to highlight and highlight some of the services that we provide here. In return, we give them access to some of the local businesses, and they have the opportunity to create their own videos and be marketed on our website. The best way to explain it is if I could show a couple of brief videos of some other surrounding towns.
Sure.
One is in Franklin Lakes. The other one is in Fairlow, were the two most recent ones that I saw. So this is just their website, and it'd be a link on their website wherever we would see fit.
Hello, I am Frank Pavona, Mayor of Franklin Lakes. Like many of our over 10,000 residents, I have lived here for over 20 years and raised my family here. I couldn't think of a better place to do so. Franklin Lakes is located in the beautiful Garden State of New Jersey in the northern Ramapo Hills, just 20 miles north of New York City. It's a great place to live, to raise a family, conduct business, or just come for a visit. Our biggest assets are our residents, who in many cases represent generations of family who grew up here and decided to stay. We have it all: highly rated schools, our K through 8 programs, 2 regional high schools, great recreation programs and facilities, a wonderful library. We have small town retail areas, but we're also home to corporate headquarters, given our terrific employee talented pool. Our borough employees and volunteers are talented groups of people who work hard for our residents and are committed to serving your needs. All of this combines into the complete package that is the Borough of Franklin Lakes. Welcome to Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, a place I am proud to call home.
So I'm not going to go through all of them, but in essence, the company provides 4 of these chapter videos, and they could be whatever we choose. They could be a welcome video, we could highlight the Parks and Rec, we could do one on emergency services, and they also throw in another free one for nonprofits to have a video link as well. So that's what the town gets out of it. And then we do an introduction to the businesses, and then you could see around this video are the different companies that have signed up. And if you click on them, this one is just a link to their website. But if the companies pay more, then they get their own video.
At St. Elizabeth School, we're dedicated.
And it shows up on this site as well. And then on their website, they also get access to this video as well. So, you know, I thought it was a great opportunity to showcase Mount Olive, to extend it to the businesses and help promote their businesses in town. It's a 3-year commitment. We'd have access to the video for 3 years. And the businesses that sign up have a 12-month window to have their businesses highlighted on this site as well.
Andrew, have you gotten any responses from the, let's say, the townships that are already doing it now to see what their feedback is and how it's benefiting them?
I want to thank Lisa. Lisa kind of spearheaded this one. She did reach out to some of the local towns in New Jersey, and they all had positive things to say. A lot of them, after the 3-year commitment, renew their contract and continue to make new videos as well. So we didn't hear any negative feedback from any of the municipalities.
Yeah, I don't see what the downside
I do.
is.
Oh, I absolutely do.
Do you business-wise?
Huge one with the chamber. Him and I already had this discussion. Chamber has featured the businesses that are members, free video posting.
Right.
Why don't we give the video members of the chambers an opportunity to cross-bid against us?
Oh, you're talking about the...
Absolutely. You're talking about a company that's going to knock on the doors
I got you.
of existing chamber members that are already featured in this town and been over a number of years without giving them a shot at it. I totally disagree.
So, I mean, I'm trying to, I mean, I guess this is something that definitely some of our current chamber members that do video production.
There's 4 specifically that are members.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them at least, you know, offer to say, yeah, we would like to at least counter offer, or we can do this, if they're even interested. Have you reached out to them to find out if they are? Is this something in their wheelhouse?
To take that a step further, with the Mount Olive TV that has since gone away, that was one of the original things we brought in the chamber members that are the video production ones to not only teach and work with them, but also to feature that, and it never went anywhere.
Those members, along with any of the chamber members, could also participate and have a video.
They already have videos.
But on this site.
Then they're paying for that too.
Right.
You're double dipping at that one. That's why I'm just objecting to bringing in another company that's going to cross bid against the ones that already done it with the chamber.
You're
I think
talking you
have
want
the chamber a fair
more
shot.
local.
Yes.
If we're going to do something and we have the opportunity to let a local video company have the opportunity to offer it rather than a larger company.
At least give a counter bid.
Right.
I mean, I'm not at all opposed to letting, you know, our current videographers say, look, this is what we're planning on doing. Do you have anything that is the same and or better? You know, I'm not at all opposed to it. I mean, obviously, this is not something that we have a timetable on to get going. So this is something we can very easily just, you know, circle back around within a month or so. And in the meantime, I would recommend, you know, Greg, just reach out to Chamber of Commerce, put it out, and you know, how much time do you think we should give them to come back?
They turn that around pretty darn quick.
Well, I think you guys should find out exactly what they're offering, because this includes a website, there's different stuff here as well.
Well, yeah, it's-
Not just a video, so we gotta make sure you compare the same.
Right.
If you're gonna do it, you
Compare
gotta
apples to
compare
apples.
apples to apples. Mayor?
It sounds to me like it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. What you're looking at here is a professional company that has an established website that people will go to. It's not just the production of the video, it's the marketing of the video once it's been produced. So I'm not adverse to putting it out there and saying to the chamber companies, this is what we are looking to do, this is why we're looking to do it with these people. What can you offer before we go out of network in terms of the marketing aspect and the production aspect? Because we'd like to keep it in-house if we can, but we're not sure that what's being offered is apples to apples.
And that's the, yep.
That's fair.
And, all right, so let me see if I understand this correctly. We're gonna let this company access to our township website, right?
Not so much access to our website,
But
there'll be a
on-
link.
It'll be a link on there.
Right.
To our video or to theirs?
To our video. It'll look
To our
just
video.
like this. It'll be a
Okay.
link to our video,
So that'll be on our township page,
like
Right.
this.
right?
And then when they click on it, it'll be this exact format with all these banners, with whatever company signs up.
Right,
If no
right.
company signs up, then there's no downfall to us either.
Right, and there's no downside, okay, but that company will then charge the businesses that are displayed.
Yes.
They receive revenue. And other than we get 4 videos that highlight the stuff that we currently do, that's the only thing that we're getting.
We're getting a professional video, and we're, in my opinion, helping local businesses promote their business.
Yeah,
But they're not
this-
doing the town's website. That's strictly the video.
This is nothing to do with the website.
Right.
Okay, that's where I
They'll-
just got
but
lost.
there'll
Okay.
be a
Nothing to do
link
with the website.
There'll be a link on the town's website where it'll click into that.
Right into
But-
that.
But see, here's where I kind of see Greg's point. We're giving them access to township residents, so they already got, let's say, 10,000 eyeballs. You know, I don't know what the latest analytics are. And yeah, in return, we get 4 videos that could very easily we can produce in-house or anywhere else. And let's assume the videos are great.
Mm-hmm.
Are we having a hard time letting people know about our recreational activities? You know, I could if they were giving us a 10% of sale of advertising, then I'd be like, okay, that's great. There's no downside for us, and there's a possibility of revenue to the township. But if anything, we're doing them a great service because now they have access to our website, our township website, where people are constantly looking into. So if I were to get anything that like, all right, fine, you know, you're going to charge advertisers. It would be the same thing if we give a company a billboard advertising, where we're letting them use township property. You can advertise. In exchange, you know, you got to pay, you know, lease. You know, you got to pay rent. So if they want access, if they want a link on our website, I think the township should at least get, you know, a rental fee or something. But I honestly, as I'm thinking about it, the whatever 4 professionally done videos, with all due respect, that's ends up being one, you know, an expenditure of time for them in upfront, and then they have residual income. If I look at the price here, what is it, $1,700, $1,200? You're talking, let's say they get 10 people, that's $12,000 a year. I mean, I for one would at least like to see, you know, what else we get other than 4 videos.
Mayor, did you have something else?
Totally disagree with Alex. Way off base as far as I'm concerned. What this is a great marketing opportunity for the township. It's a great marketing opportunity for the businesses that want to take advantage of it. It's a service that's being provided to us for free. It's a service that we're now being able to offer to the businesses that want to participate. It puts us on their website. someone looking at New Jersey might want to look at Franklin Lakes, they might want to look at Mount Olive Township, they might want to look at other townships that are also doing these kind of professional videos. I think that I applaud Andrew's effort to bring this in. I think it's a great opportunity for the township. What we're getting is our free advertising. We're getting free professional videos. We're getting free opportunity for the businesses to get involved in something like this to the extent that they want to advertise on it. I appreciate Greg's perspective on it, and I, as I said before, I think that we need to go to the chamber members that have the capabilities of doing this so that we can compare apples to apples. But in terms of trying to generate revenue off of this, I think you're way off base, Alex. It's not going to happen. That's not what the purpose of this is. This is really something to promote Mount Olive that's not going to cost us anything, and it's going to offer opportunity to the businesses in town who want to take advantage of something like this. If they don't want to take advantage of it, they don't have to. It doesn't cost anybody anything. And it seems to me that this company has done it in so many different municipalities that it works. Otherwise, they wouldn't continue with this business model. So that's just my general thought.
Holly?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. Do they have certain guidelines of what businesses they will do videos for?
I don't have that handy, but yes, there are. They do have guidelines.
Okay.
And if you wanted, you could also put a disclaimer on the link here as well, saying that the township doesn't support or promote any of the products.
Right, because I was thinking in terms like what Greg was saying with some of the chamber members that do videos, if they were interested to do their advertising, would they be allowed like businesses, or do they restrict comparable, same type of
Oh, no,
businesses?
absolutely not. They wouldn't. You mean if another video company wanted to? No,
Yeah.
they would absolutely
Yeah,
allow
So-
that.
At the $1,800 they're collecting, I wouldn't see why not.
So that, yeah, but sometimes they will have restrictions with stuff, and that's why I'm asking. And the other thing I just want to point out, and Rob Mayor could correct me if I'm wrong, or our attorney, I think that there's legally, we wouldn't be able to let our businesses advertise on our website. I think there's some kind of legal restrictions. This would give an opportunity for a roundabout way for people to be on our website, click on the link, and then go and actually be able to see what businesses are in town. Is that correct? We're not allowed, we can't actually.
Right,
have-
we can't
sell ads on it.
We
Yeah,
cannot
we
sell
can't
ads.
sell, we can't
On
sell
our
ads.
website, but not on this one.
On our website, so this would give them,
Private website.
endorse anyone.
yeah, so this would give the local businesses through our website originally an opportunity to have a wider, spread out there in the public. Do they, do they do Facebook and all that other
Well, we could
social
easily
media?
just take this link and attach it to any, town Facebook page. So it could be used on all those other platforms.
I guess the question comes down to, you want to compare it to a local one, which is fine. We just have to get the apples to apples, like we said, because this is a whole website. I'd
No,
like.
it's not. This is strictly a video.
No, it's their website where it's
Right.
going, and that's what they promote, and that's where
I don't
other
think
people are
so.
going to there. That's what I'd like to
It's a
know.
landing page is all that is.
Right, it's a landing page off of their website, meaning it goes to their server, not ours. It's going to theirs.
I'd like Andrew to check on that. I bet you it does not. It goes to a spot, a hosted spot someplace.
Well, yeah, it's going right there. I mean, you
Yeah,
can
it
see
has
where
to
it's
go- it
going.
has to go
The
off
question
that
I have
link.
more so is,
Not
if we're going to
necessarily.
compare it, we need to know basically what are their analytics. Do they get a lot of hits on their pages? Because like the mayor's saying, if there's how many towns do they do right now? If they have 100 communities in there, that's a benefit as well, and we got to compare it. Not that I don't want to go local. Believe me, I'm local more than anyone.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that, but I understand both sides of it. And I think, if we want to look local, we really got to make sure we're comparing it to the same
Okay.
sort of items, and maybe Greg and you can, come up with that and figure out before we go forward with it. Because the idea is great. I think it's a great promotional video wherever it's done. I think it's great to have. It'd be
Totally
great
agree.
to put out there, put it everywhere we have, from YouTube to Facebook to everywhere. The question becomes, what's the benefit here beside the free video? Is it going to be they get a lot of traffic to that site from all over the state, and people are looking at communities to move a business to come in? I don't know that, and I don't know if we know that yet either.
Not yet.
But if we can get those numbers, that would help. If they have a ton of people going to that site, then it's a benefit as well over putting your own site together. So, Mr. Roman?
Right, and Andrew, by all means, I applaud you for bringing this up. I mean, there's anything that to promote the township and area businesses, but with respect, we're doing them a favor by kicking off from our township website. And yes, our business is going to advertise, you know, of course, obviously every business will make a decision on their own, whether it's you know, the $1,800 to $5,500 package that they end up getting. That's great. And a business can, you know, let's say my business would advertise, and I would probably have no, as long as I see the return, I would be more than glad. But I would be benefiting off of the original link into the township's website. Of all people, would love to advertise on the township's website. If that was ever allowed, I'd be on there. Since I legally can't, this would be a great way for me to circumvent that. People are constantly going to the township's website, somebody goes, oh, the township has a video. Let me link onto that. I get sent to there. Now they get to see my eyeball. So as a business, I can perfectly see wanting this to help local businesses and that. But again, we're doing them a favor by letting them bounce off of our township website. And I think the 3 to 4 videos, that's, yeah, I'm all for promoting the township, but I don't see the benefit to the residents of Mount Olive.
In any case, I think moving forward, what we want to do, if we are going to move forward, is to find out, maybe have the companies, Greg, that are interested, view this website, go through it, see what they think of it, see what they feel. They may come back and say, you know, it's not something I want.
Right.
You know, and until you talk with them and let them understand what this is, because somebody's going to benefit from it no matter who. And if it's local, that's great. I'd rather benefit your local businesses, but it's going to happen the same way. A local business is going to say, I'll create the videos for you and I'll sell ads on it. That's fine. It's just a question of trying to keep it local. I understand that more than anything. So maybe, Greg, you can reach out to them, work with Andrew to get this site, let them look at it and see if that's something that they're interested in doing.
Right.
And maybe we can get some stats on it to see what kind of traffic they do get, because that might help us make a better decision. If they're getting a lot of traffic, then that can be a big help as well.
Video is a great way to promote any company, any township.
No question.
That's what that's about.
Yeah, that's all it is promoting, there's no question.
Yeah, and if we wanted to promote the township, we could very easily hire any professional company to do our own 4 videos, and
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I just like to know what their stats are, because if there's a secret sauce here that we're not seeing, like they're getting 100,000 views a month from people all over that are looking to move or business, that's a benefit. If there's not much there, then there's no benefit.
right, you want to see that benefit, that 100,000 views, whatever, that benefits to the people that are paying for the advertising.
Right.
The benefit to the town, I don't see the benefit. Again, I'm just looking at that page, assuming, let's say minimum $1,500 everybody pays there. And just roundly counting, that's $15,000 that they're getting from jumping off of Franklin Lake's website. In exchange, the township, the Franklin Lake's got 4 videos.
Again, I just I understand it all. We'll have to see what the stat. I'm just curious as well what the stats are to see if it's worth a.
Maybe what the township got in response was the fact that they helped their businesses become more
well, I mean, there's a lot
profitable.
of
Just thinking outside the box. That's
Helping
all.
the business would have been if the advertising is free. That would be helping. But again, as a business owner, I would be more than
I think the
you're
issue
going to
here
tell
is
me that there's
local, right?
10,000 views, that you're going to guarantee 10,000 eyeballs. Sign me up. I'm there. But I have to think about it. I'm thinking
Greg,
about it from the other end.
Greg, tell me what happened when the Chamber of Commerce tried to do this. Was it very successful?
It's been extremely successful.
Was it?
Yep. Look at the chamber site. Look at all the businesses that have the videos posted. They're all-
Right, and are they generating a lot of business leads? Is it being? How often are those sites being?
You'd have
being
to ask
visited?
them. We
It's all
don't-
business dependent.
They track all that.
And that's what we're saying. We need to find out the stats to see and let the local businesses understand what this is before they tell you what they can do. Some might want to do it, some may not.
Some chambers charge. This chamber up here gives every member a free video posting.
Yeah, is it already connected to our webpage?
Well, there's a link.
There's a link, so it's already there.
It's already on the site.
But it's not highlighted, it just says Mount Olive Chamber. It doesn't show like this, where if they go into showing the video. The biggest difference is this clicks on the video, you're looking at what Franklin Lakes is, and it's
Right, and then
featuring
around it.
the businesses that they're charging to be links into it. That's your difference.
Maybe the chamber would want to look at that.
Sounds like a business model, just charge less than these guys.
Yeah, it sounds like something the chamber might want to look at with their people, if that's the case.
You got to define what you're going to be asking for. If you're asking for that, that's one type of a bid.
Well, if you're going to compare it to this, then it's got. If we're going to compare it to this, that's that. It's
Right.
mostly promotional videos, is what we were talking about. The whole thing was really to promote the town.
Exactly.
Create free videos.
I just
to
want
promote
a
the town.
video to promote the town.
Right.
If
So
this is the way to do it for free.
Right. If someone wants to
Right.
create 4 professional videos for us to promote the town and link it to the chamber website and put all this stuff, it's the same thing. You'll be happy. That's really what we're looking
Well,
to do.
it's different because
overall.
that has a revenue kicker to it.
Well, it does. I'm saying.
Oh,
for
no,
the
it
business.
does.
Yeah. for the-
And if our intent is to promote the town, then having a video on the township website, with all due respect, I don't think is the best thing out there. If we want to promote the town, then we would have to have videos, and then on some other places where people are randomly going by.
Correct, and
That's
that's what
when
this
that's
is,
when you
and
want
that's
to
what I'm
promote,
saying, right.
promote the town. Now, somebody's not going. No Google organic search is going to land them there.
Correct.
Nobody, looking up any normal search throughout their day is not going to accidentally get landed in there. That's not the way organic searching goes. What happens there is that site is using the eyeballs that are landing on the township's website, then going to there. So if we're looking to promote the township, as far as other videos, then that's where the YouTubes and the Facebooks and the Google Plus, all those other outside entities that end up bringing those eyeballs to a township website. That's what I would characterize as promoting the town. People are already going to the township website, and what we want to do is show them, what we're doing. Then that's different. But if we're talking of promoting the township, then we have to have whatever videos or whatever we want to promote be outside of the township website.
Well, I think what we can do is, I work with Greg and you on this. I think we should talk about this, because there's opportunities. I understand what you want to do, and it's a great idea, and I'm glad you brought it, because it is something
And
we
that's
really
one
can
option.
use. Right, it's one option. But I think with you, me, and Greg, we can figure out something and come back with something to the council and
That's
see if
fair.
something makes sense. And we'll take it from there. But it's a great, I love the idea that the videos, obviously, we never really thought about it much before, so at least you gave us something new to go after, and I
Again,
appreciate
thank
that.
Yeah, no problem.
So we'll continue with that, and we'll get together
You got it.
and talk about that more and come up with that.
Based upon the discussion, I'm fine with just leaving it the way that it is. People want to go, can go to the chamber site and see what it is.
Well, that's what I want to say, yeah,
I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a great idea to promote the town, and obviously, there is certainly a perspective on council that doesn't want to go this direction. So we'll keep things status quo.
I think you should at least look at the options for yourself for what video can
Yeah, we
do.
might be able to get some videos for the town promotion. That's what I'm saying, through the chamber. There might be some options by talking.
I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I think that either, I'll wait to get feedback from you.
Right, and then we can see, that's fine. And we'll see
And
from
Andrew, I
there.
would say maybe reach out to them.
Yeah.
Is there anything that, that
Give us more.
the township will benefit, monetarily wise?
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good job.
We'll continue. We will pick that up again, and Greg and I and you will go through that. We have 7 resolutions. Does anyone have any, there was eight resolutions, I'm sorry. There was one added. Does anyone have any questions or anything on resolutions?
Nope.
No, sorry.
That's okay. We have one ordinance for second reading. Do we have any questions? Mr. Rowan?
I'm assuming Chuck is here and he's going to be answering regarding the memo that we received. Find that memo.
Yes, good evening. Again, just to touch on the highlights, as I talked about at the first reading for ordinance 24-2017, this would allow residential use in the FDZ 4 zone district, and it would allow it as what is known as a planned unit development. That requires a minimum tract size of 50 acres. It allows for more flexibility than conventional zoning when the projects are laid out, and adjusted. There's a maximum density of 6 units per acre. It allows for a range of housing types, from single-family to townhomes to multifamily. And again, the multifamily, thinking about the BASF, or the former BASF complex, a site like that, which was actually identified, as I indicated, I think I've indicated in the past, in the Urban Land Institute did a study and published a report specifically about that building and that complex, and said it would be ideal for a mixed-use type of development, including residential. All housing that is generated, should that occur in the future at this, in this area, would require a 20% affordable housing set aside, and that is a key part of the town's settlement agreement, which we've talked about before, which will be going in front of Judge Neergaard next month, and we trust will be done with our affordable housing obligation for the next 10 years. It will require any development in this FTZ4 zone, and incidentally, all the existing zoning for the trade zone stays in place. So the commercial zoning and other kind of zoning that's allowed in the 4 district does not go away. But residential development will require a 40% open space requirement. And lastly, in particular, it will have the ordinance requires a 100-foot buffer to the Morris Canal in order to preserve that section of the Morris Canal. And we feel that that is a valuable asset. Now, with regard to the memo, the planning board reviewed this as they are charged to do, and I responded with a memo of their review of this ordinance. There are some slight differences in this ordinance from the 2015 land use plan element that created the foundation for it. So what the what the planning board was required to do was to determine if there are any inconsistencies between the ordinance and the master plan. And that was done and laid out in the memorandum. What your charge is, if I may be so bold, and of course, Dawn is here this evening, she can guide you on this, but in the municipal land use law, you're charged as the governing body, when you create zoning, not to see inconsistencies, but to see if this ordinance is substantially consistent with the land use plan element and with the housing element. So it's a little bit different focus. So, and in that regard, the memo that was submitted to you, I offered at least my observations on it, that it is substantially consistent. It's consistent in the fact that it will introduce residential zoning, which is consistent with the recommendation from the land use plan element. It will allow a mixed use and diversity of housing types. It will promote affordable housing, which is absolutely consistent with the new housing element and fair share plan. So, for what it's worth, I don't believe that this ordinance deviates from the core objectives and the recommendations of the 2015 land use plan element. And that's...
Mr. Roman?
Chuck, on Lot 1, what business is that right now?
Lot 1?
Yeah. I'm having a hard time pulling it up on the tax map.
Well, there's different Lot 1s. There are different blocks. The Foreign Trade Zone District 4 has, and incidentally, just for your information, it comprises approximately 300 acres total. Now, there is Block 200, Lot 1, that is the former BASF building.
Right, but the memo in question is for Block 106, Lot 1, and basically his issue is saying that Lot 2 were to go residential.
Oh, you're talking about Mr. Dunn's letter?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Dunn is here this evening, Mr. Kaplan, his client, is with him. I did speak with both Mr. Kaplan and Mr. Dunn, perhaps they'll speak tonight, and then I spoke separately with Mr. Dunn after his letter. I don't challenge his reading of the ordinance, and Mr. Dunn certainly is a very experienced land use attorney, and probably in other facets of the law as well, I'm simply looking at the buffer section of the town's ordinance and saying I don't think it's as stringent as is anticipated in that letter. I'm also thinking that in the, for example, Mr. Kaplan's property, which is the Folding Box Company, that's in the GI zone, and it abuts this Lot 2 that would be rezoned, which is owned by the Foreign Trade Zone or the Rockefeller Group. That would be rezoned to the FTZ4. The GI zone, where Folding Box is located, requires a 50-foot side yard setback. And that, I think, and I know Mr. Kaplan's property well, I know the site plan well, I believe that that's the issue. It's the side yard where it would abut Lot 2. And the buffer requirements in the ordinance require at least half the buffer to be 25 feet wide. So you already have a 50-foot side yard setback. Within that, you can have a 25-foot buffer with no difficulty. But I will, I think, acknowledge that the buffer language in the ordinance is confusing. It's always been confusing. We, in my experience, my 28 years here, talked about changing it, and it keeps getting sort of dropped to the bottom of the list and not addressed. And yet it comes up all the time with site plans, but we find ways to work through it and deal with it, such as when Siemens was doing their expansion down in Flanders, and Flanders Crossing, of course, is right adjacent to it, and it was worked out in terms of how that buffer was going to be established. So I don't think that, at least from my perspective, the concerns that Mr. Kaplan has and through his attorney, Mr. Dunn, I don't think that that's going to be fatal to any project they have in mind. I think that the ordinance has a lot of flexibility, and bear in mind, this PUD ordinance is designed to have flexibility so that no residential developer that has any experience or sophistication is going to build right up against a non-residential boundary. And in fact, the concept plans that we've been talking about with the Rockefeller Group over the past couple of years consistently show quite a substantial buffer on their side when they're laying out. It's actually in proximity to what they call the canal parcel because of the Mars Canal. And there's always, in all the concept plans, there's some kind of a buffer. Now, I understand that's just a concept plan. That could change. I would suggest, however, maybe to move beyond this, is a commitment that we will address the buffer requirements in the ordinance to clarify them and to ensure that they don't penalize an existing business, such as someone like Mr. Kaplan's, who's in the GI zone, and properties adjacent to it get rezoned so that they don't then have to be penalized for a buffer requirement that they otherwise would not have had to deal with. How we can do that, there's different ways. I won't take your time tonight, but I think that we can clarify what is required of a buffer and really get down to the essence of what we're trying to do. You're trying to separate two different kinds of uses. Sometimes it's not a question of linear distance. It's just a question maybe of different topography, different landscaping, things of that nature. And we can put the onus perhaps on the second party that comes to the table. So if you're already there, maybe the other party has the responsibility to enhance the buffer.
Now, considering the statement that you made earlier that your interpretation of this ordinance should not have a negative impact on, in this particular case, Mr. Kaplan, could your statement be used in future applications in order to, if they needed to do any expansion? Or?
You mean Mr. Kaplan?
Yeah.
Well, as I said, in the Folding Box Company property, Mr. Kaplan's property, he has in the GI zone a requirement to maintain a 50-foot side yard setback, which is adjacent to, that's well established. And that's the concern because there's his property abuts this lot 2 that would be rezoned.
So it's not the side yard setback, it's the buffer.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the buffer, the side yard setback is 50 feet required, the buffer is only 25. So
Right.
you can fit a buffer within a side yard setback. If the reverse were true, I think it would be more onerous. Also, Mr. Kaplan has a building, a very small building. He has a number of buildings, but he has a smaller building, which is actually, if not right on the boundary, very close to it. And it's there, and he's entitled to keep it there, and he's entitled to use it. It's a pre-existing, non-conforming structure by virtue of its location. It's very close to the boundary. But he's entitled to keep it. And I'll mention one other thing. The Stanhope Well House property, which is about 1 or 2 acres, I can't remember, is sort of situated right the same location as where these two properties come close to each other. So any residential or any other kind of development for that matter in the future on Lot 2 in the FTZ4 district will have to maintain appropriate distances from that well house as well.
All right, I'm good.
Anyone else?
Yep.
I think we're good. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chuck. Anyone, nothing else on that? Does anyone have any old business? Seeing none, does anyone have any new business? Seeing none, does anyone from the public wish to be heard at this time? If you do, you could just get up, state your name and address for the record.
Evening, Council President, Mayor Greenberg, nice to see you. My name is Edward Dunn. I'm an attorney in Ledgewood. I represent Waterloo Road Development Company, which is the owner of Lot 1 and Block 106. The current use of that property is industrial. It deals with manufacturing of box products. It also has multiple uses of other tenants, including truck rentals and truck repairs on property for tenants on site. It also has on it a landscaping operation with storage of materials on one side of the property, which is very far away from this particular proposal. The letter I sent, I didn't know you actually received it because it wasn't on your agenda, but I'm glad you did receive it. We're not particularly opposed to any residential properties that are going into the FTZ4 zone. It's curious that you're mixing residential uses and industrial uses, but that's not our concern. Obviously, meeting your affordable housing requirements is laudable and has to be done anyway, so that can't be not supported by us. The problem is the proximity of our client's use to the Lot 2 in Block 106. You plan to change from a GI zone to an FTZ4 zone. It's currently zoned as general industrial. It borders our client's property, and it is, if you look at the exhibits I attached to our letter for your information, you'll see in the second map that accessory building right on the boundary line of Lot 2. It's only a few feet off that boundary line and currently is used for storage of trucks and vehicles, and will be used for working on those vehicles inside. And there will be parking, there already is parking along the phase line on our side of the property. And that's very close to what can become residential properties. And right now it can't be. Right now it's only general industrial uses. The setbacks proposed in your new ordinance for residential uses have a special setback when you meet another tract. And that's as it should be. But the setback is only 30 feet. So if you put a residential component here, it's allowed to be only 30 feet off of our property line, based upon that particular specification in your new ordinance. We suggest that that's not a sufficient distance from an industrial use as incompatible uses. When you have industrial uses next door to residential uses, even if everything is legit and they follow all the particular setback lines, there's always complaints back and forth between residential uses and industrial uses. And we think that if the conceptual plans made by the development group that's going to develop this property have a large buffer there, then make that part of your ordinance. Make that a requirement, because you can't rely upon some concept plan that says, oh, we're planning on putting some buffer there at some point in time, unless it's in your ordinance to require that. I suggest that at least 100-foot setback off of our property line would be an appropriate buffer between a residential use and our client's property. We intend to continue parking development along that phase line, and the property will be further developed. It's planned to be further developed over time. Consideration ought to be given to adding a buffer there that's better than what is proposed in your ordinance, or taking out Lot 2 of this altogether. There's no reason why you really need Lot 2. You know, if this developer needs open space, make Lot 2 open space component of this property. That would solve part of the problem. He'd have part of his 40% open space set aside built right into the ordinance. It would be a good way to go. But if that wasn't the case, I think that if it has to stay in the FTZ4 zone, we're stuck with this buffer ordinance 550-36, which has been handed out to you as well. That seems to require, when you have a non-residential use backing up to a residential use, there are additional setback requirements, which can be up to 200 feet for a building and 100 feet for a parking area. That's a tremendous amount of property that's going to be taken away from our client's property if we have to comply with those buffering. Now, I've known Mr. McGrady for a long time, and I'm sure he would work with us on those things, but there's no requirement that happen. If he wasn't the planner next year and wouldn't work with us, we would have problems in future development of that site. So I'm asking you to consider the alternatives that we proposed in our letter, which would take Lot 2 out of this altogether, provide some better buffering between our client's use, or let this Lot 2 be part of the open space requirement of this particular ordinance. So that's, in a nutshell, what our proposal is. Any questions for me? Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Were you satisfied with Mr. McGarty's statements that that you would have no difficulty in expanding use? And do you think that his statements on the record could be used later on, were he not to be the planner anymore?
Well, I know that I couldn't rely on his statements in a future application before the planning board because even though we might say that and mean that, and I don't doubt his sincerity at all, I happen to be very friendly with Chuck, but the fact is that he can't guarantee that. It's a board decision. It's not his decision to make, any more than he can maintain that the concept plan that's been received as part of this overall development project that shows some kind of a big buffer between our client's property and residential use is a guarantee that will happen that way. It's just a concept. So we don't know that that's going to happen that way unless the ordinance provides for proper buffering or takes that lot out of it. I mean, I don't know why you would include that lot anyway. It's a general industrial zone lot. Why not just leave it that way?
Mayor? Couple things. First of all, Mr. Dunn is correct that there's no legal weight to what Chuck says here in terms of buffering. The ordinances are what the ordinances are. The planning board will deal with it appropriately based upon what the laws and based upon whatever type of variances might come in with respect to any type of application which is before them, either on Mr. Dunn's client's property or on the property which is the subject of the rezoning. However, I don't agree with this particular position taken by Mr. Dunn on behalf of his client. Ultimately, his property, he's got a building which is in the side yard setback as is, which is basically right on the property line as I can see it. As Chuck said, it's a pre-existing, non-conforming building which he can continue to use. The onus will obviously be on, originally will be on the new developer on the FTC4 side. He's not going to put houses adjacent to an ongoing commercial use because he's not going to be able to sell those properties. So while we only have a concept plan in, general common sense dictates that ultimately that developer will have to figure out some type of appropriate buffering with respect to any residential properties that are on Lot 2 as discussed. This is a particular ordinance which has gone back and forth. It's gone through the planning board, it's come back up. There are critical issues associated with passing this evening, and I would recommend that when it comes up for a vote that it gets pushed through. It can always be modified down the road. Any particular applicant can seek relief at the time that they're looking to develop from the planning board by way of variance as well.
Well, I actually agree with the mayor about his comments about whether we can rely on the board to follow Mr. McGarty's recommendations, and I do respect both the mayor and Mr. McGarty, but I don't think we can rely upon marketing to determine whether or not someone's going to build something within the setback. If that's true, then it does no harm to add a buffering requirement between residences that are going to be added to this property and an industrial zone that is right next door, and put that right in your ordinance, so that it identifies that as the problem. It doesn't rely upon marketing or a concept plan or somebody's good wishes.
What I find to be interesting is Mr. Dunn's concern over the residences that are going to be adjacent to his existing commercial property. Ultimately, the buffering is what the buffering is, and Mr. Dunn's client will have to deal with the buffers that are currently in place, notwithstanding the fact that we're going to have a rezoning of the adjacent property. And really, it seems to me that Mr. Dunn is arguing on behalf of the property, of the residential property owners that are going to be moving in next door, rather than on behalf of his client, which is where I thought he was going originally.
Absolutely not true. I mean, obviously, it's the juxtaposition of incompatible uses that makes the problem here, not our client's setbacks or our client's problems. So more distance between our client's issue, even with our own 50-foot setbacks. 50 feet is not a big setback. Needs to be larger for the residential component, especially if you're going to put single-family homes over there, which is what I...
The 50-yard setback is not going to affect the use of your property. It's already in place. So your property will, which is zoned for the uses that you're using it for, will continue to be used for those purposes. So your arguing about the buffering doesn't seem to make sense to me in terms of your argument that this is that you're making it on behalf of your client, rather than I could understand this argument more readily being made by the property, the rezoned property that's looking to actually put in the residences.
Well, the reason you don't see that is because I guess you're not representing people that come before planning boards, because the residences come out no matter what you're doing or what your own setback is, because you're close to their zone. And they'll come out whether you have a 50-foot setback or not. And the protection we get from that is having them further away from us, so they're less impacted by whatever we have. So of course it protects our client as well.
I don't necessarily disagree with Mr. Dunn. I do enough planning board work that I have seen the residences always come out, and it's always an anomaly to me that they come notwithstanding the fact that there is a pre-existing use inconsistent with the residences on an adjacent property, and they complain about that inconsistent use even though it was there prior to they're moving into the neighborhood. So I do adopt that argument.
You're right, but as we expand, that will draw more attention.
Yeah,
so.
But the bottom line is, as you expand with respect to what your permitted uses are, as long as you're not seeking variances with respect to going into those buffers, the planning board is required as a matter of law to approve your application.
I understand that, but politics being what it is, it doesn't always work that way.
I don't know anything. I don't know anything about politics.
I know you
just
don't.
land use.
I'm not trying to be facetious. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just curious as to find out, what is a capped iron bar? What is that?
Sorry?
Capped iron bar? There's one right at the property line?
Could be a corner property marker.
Okay, because there's one on another. I'm just wondering, what is it? Bob, do you know, anybody know what that is? Because
I don't think it's something that...
Capped iron bar found, and it's on two, it's just right at that property line right there. So I'm
Usually
just,
it's a property line marker.
It could be a marker.
so that's what, okay, so
That's
it's
what it
not
usually
anything
is, yeah.
else that's
Doesn't-
environmentally?
No.
Okay, thank you. I was just
Okay.
curious.
Any other questions?
I am more than satisfied with the work done by the planning board and Chuck McGarty as far as the crafting of this ordinance, and I don't see it in any way that's going to negatively impact the Mr. Kaplan's property. We will be able to continue with his use, and it would not interfere with the expansion, any future expansion. So I am for moving forward with this ordinance.
Anyone else? Is anyone else just to be heard? Anyone else on this right now? Any questions on this? Does anyone else wish to be heard from the public in this session? Seeing none, close to the public. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. I open the Mount Olive Township Council meeting for December 19th, 2017. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
Yes. According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante.
Here.
Mrs. Labow.
Here.
Mr. Mania.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Mr. Roman.
Here.
Mr. Nacastro.
Here. Mr. Amianda, would you approve minutes from December 5th, 2017, workshop and public meeting?
Yes, Mr. President. I make a motion for approval of minutes of previous meetings on December 5, 2017, work session and public meeting, and absent D. Amianda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda.
Abstain.
Mr. Ferrante.
Yes.
Mrs. Labow.
Yes.
Mr. Mania.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Mr. Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro.
Yes. That's all set. This one. Oh, that's the only one, that's right. I'm sorry, we're just on that one. I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 24.
Point of order, correspondence?
Oh, I'm sorry, we have 12 correspondence. I'm sorry, thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the correspondence?
Nope.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 24-2017, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Mount Olive, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to amend and supplement Chapter 550 Land Use to establish definitions and standards for planned unit residential development for FTZ 4 Zone District. Mr. Ferrante.
I move that ordinance number 24-2017 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on January 16th, 2018.
It's the second.
Second reading.
Second reading.
Second reading, sorry.
All right. I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 24-2017.
Second.
Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on this ordinance? If you'd just please go up and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Rachel Marlowe. I live at 39 Oakwood Village, Apartment 5. I just have some questions about the open space.
Why don't you pull the mic down?
Yeah, I'm a little short. I just have some questions about the open space provisions. I think if the open space provision is required as part of this ordinance, that it gives the township a lot of opportunity to be more stringent as far as open space requirements. It does give this provision that open space must be included, but it could be included for only the people that live in these residences. I want to make sure that it doesn't include retention basins, which are technically an open space use, but would not be to the benefit of the public.
Chuck? Yeah, Chuck, you can, that's fine.
Open space would exclude, and always, well, not always, but has in recent past, we've made changes. Open space would never include stormwater detention basins or other utilities. So open spaces, and the ordinance is clear about it, it has to be contiguous so that it's not just checkerboard kind of arrangements to reach that 40% threshold. And there are some legal issues in terms of whether or not you can compel that land to be dedicated to the township or to a nonprofit entity. But in any event, it will be open space, and it will be. There's no reason why certain easements and access easements and the like can't be required as well. But the town ordinance does mandate that the first offer be made here to the governing body to see if the town is interested in accepting it.
Chuck, I assume that the tot lot that's proposed, am I confusing applications?
Nothing yet is proposed here.
So
So
if there were, like, say, as part of the affordable housing, there would be, say, a playground tot lot,
Right.
that would be part of the open space?
No, I don't think so. I would have to look at the ordinance again. Generally not. Generally, it is not. For example, down in Regency at Flanders, where we have the affordable housing component, which is Crescent. There is a tot lot there, but that is not part for the affordable housing, which is Marvelin Crescent, as it's known now. But that is not part, was never part of the total calculation of open space for Regency.
Thank you.
And we generally wouldn't. I mean, it's insignificant, and it's really geared. And to your point, Mr. Roman, Councilman Roman, that land, those kind of facilities are protected. I mean, they are for the residents, and there is a certain amount of security issues there. So they can be secured. They're not necessarily open to the general public, as the rest of the open space tract would be.
If you look at Regency, we got the horse farm, we got the farmland, we got the buildings in back, we got the track. I mean, we got some excellent open space, which has already been used for the benefit of Mount Olive Township in a number of different ways. And obviously, the open space element would be subject to their application before the planning board as well, to be reviewed by the planning board in terms of the appropriateness of what they're looking to offer the town. And I do recognize that there are legal issues involved in terms of mandating open space. Obviously, I've been involved in litigation related to it, so.
Then the only other thing that I would add is that you have the opportunity to add easements that you consider trail access, which would butt to Alamochi State Park.
Excellent point. We always look for trail access and trail development where we can, and because of its location, both in terms of its proximity to the Morris Canal and Alamochi State Park, that the most appropriate open space on that property, subject to the development plans of the developer, would relate to somehow connecting it into both of those opportunities for passive recreation.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep. Just go up, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Irene Sergonis. I'm at 37 Mount Olive Road in Bud Lake. I have lived here since May 16th, 1980, and I've seen this movie played many times before. We add more residential units, and our schools become overcrowded. Soon we are losing our soccer field so that we can spend millions of dollars on a middle school. And how many children are going to be added to our school system? How much is this going to cost us? How many residential units is this going to be? I've seen it happen again and again. Our taxes go up. My friends have to move out of town because the taxes are too high. And we have plenty of vacant apartments, plenty of homes that are not being sold here. So I see no use for this. And another thing in regards to the businesses, I have a business. When we looked for our business, we looked for an industrial place. If somebody moved in where we're doing our business right now, and they made a residential area, that would not be fair to the business that has been there for how many years. So this is my problem with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone wants to answer that.
I don't know if we have final plans on anything as far as housing and all to go.
Well, I did hear some kind of, I'm sure it's probably a rumor that there were plans in place, that there was somebody, here, but, I'm sure maybe that's, could be just a rumor, but, you're making it easy for whoever might have these plans to come in. This should be still zoned the way it is. Why would you change that?
I can answer that.
Mayor.
First of all, the way that it's currently zoned, it is useless property. No one will build. It's laid vacant ever since I've been involved since probably year 2000. There were studies which came in, independent studies which indicated that the best and highest use for the property was actually a mixed use residential and commercial component, which is what this particular ordinance does. With respect to taxes, I can tell you, since I've taken over, I haven't raised taxes once. The school board is entitled to take a 2% increase. That's it. That's what they take. Also, my understanding of the enrollment within the school system is that we have a declining enrollment moving forward, and that there is currently room in the schools. So I don't expect that this in any way will add to the tax burden. In fact, an analysis of what this will bring to the township is significant in terms of maintaining no additional increases in taxes. Without continued growth, you will start to see incredible increases in your property tax. I am telling you, without continued growth, you will see incredible increases. The manner in which the municipality and all municipalities run is that you need growth. Without growth, some of the towns are starting to have to shed off services. So if you want to live in a town where you don't have 49 police officers, but you have 20, you don't have maintenance of your facilities, you don't run a library, then you can get by without having growth. If I could turn this property into the commercial entity that it was originally expected to be, that would be a grand slam. But that's not what this property will yield when you look at it from a property use perspective, which is exactly what the study did. Chuck, do you remember who did the study?
Yes.
Land Institute? Urban Land Institute, a non-political. So the bottom line is that this is the most productive use for this property. They will probably have to do some kind of reconfiguration of where people are sending their kids to schools at some point down the road. It may be 10 years down the road, but I don't expect them to have to build another school. So without them having to build another school, there really is no negative taxing.
You know, I've heard this before too. As the developments are going on, I've been here for a long time, and I've heard it again and again. And another thing is our water situation too. You know, keep on building and having people draw down on the underground water supply. Climate change is real, and that is an issue too. You keep on bringing more and more people in here, and more people using the resources, the traffic, all these things.
Let me explain a couple things to you. Number one, 80% of Mount Olive Township is in the Highlands Preservation Area. It cannot be developed, period. It's open space. All you can do on a piece of property that's in the Highlands Preservation Area, let's say you own a 40-acre tract, you can build one house. That's all you can do.
But if you're bringing those people in over there,
Can I finish,
they're
please?
drawing down on the
Irene,
well.
Can I finish, please? 80% of the town cannot be developed. Without further development in the town, and this is the concept that you're not agreeing with me on, you're entitled. Without further development, I can tell you, I do budgets, I've done budgets for the last 20 years in this town, both as the mayor and as councilman. If you don't have continued growth, you will start to see your taxes go up significantly, and you will see a reduction in services that we have bent over backwards to maintain. So we look for shared service opportunities with other towns that don't have growth, like Netcon, like Dover, like Mount Arlington. All of the towns that don't have growth aren't able to provide services to their residents because the taxes would go through the roof. And at some point, the state of New Jersey has come down and said you can't spend more, that it's a 2% property tax increase, and you would start to lay off your police officers. You'd start to have maintenance issues in your park. So one of the things that we are tasked with up here, and I have worked very hard to do, is to promote business and to promote growth in the township. Mount Olive is not Chester, it's not Mendham. We don't have 20-acre tracts on pieces. We have apartment complexes, we have developments that grew up around the lake, we have homes that have been built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and we are more akin to a Parsippany than we will ever be to a Parsippany, to a Chatham or a Chester or a Mendham. It's just the way that the town developed long before I was here. So we have one opportunity left in town to develop, and it's really this far side of the town that's on the north side of Route 46 that's in the trade zone.
I understand where it is.
That's it. There's nothing left to develop.
walked there, so.
Zero. So without growth there, to leave it fallow does not do the residents of Mount Olive what you think it's going to do.
Do we have some numbers of how many residents this would add and how many children this would add?
We don't know until we actually see applications that come in. We haven't had a formal application submitted because they're waiting for the zoning change. The zoning change also imparts, it impacts in part the sale of 57 acres that the town is selling, which has to be appraised based upon the new zoning. So the town is standing to benefit actually from a $3.5 million land sale, which again will go to stabilize taxes and /or to develop other kind of recreational activities in the township. So it's very complicated. I recognize when I came into office, I had the same view that you had, which is we don't need any more residences in town. We don't need to educate any more kids, because once we start to educate kids, it's a revenue that is far less than what it costs to educate a kid. But when you look at the number, actually, what it costs to educate a kid, it's part physical plant, and it's part extra teachers that need to be brought in, and it's part whatever kind of equipment that you have to provide for the kids. If you don't have to build a new school, then the influx of children, to a certain extent, is a good thing, to a point. Obviously, if your classes get oversized, we're not there. Our school system is incredibly good. The numbers that we see in terms of their reputation, in terms of where they are viewed, in terms of the overall state program, it continues to move in a very positive direction. The Board of Education has done a fantastic job in terms of providing opportunities for our children. Ultimately, if you have a declining balance, you end up closing facilities, which is something that you want to try and avoid. Like I foresee Netcong in the next 10 to 15 years will cease to exist as a municipality because they have no growth. They're not going to be able to educate their kids on the elementary level because they're going to have to start closing facilities. So those are the things that we look to try and avoid. We look at planning in terms of what is the school board telling me in terms of where the number of children are going. Developments like Flanders Crossing, which put 200 or 300 kids into the school systems, now has a turnover. You're not seeing the same number of kids at a Flanders Crossing and Bennington. And you still see some turnover, but it's not that instant influx of children that came at one particular point in time. So I feel very comfortable that this is the right decision
This
for
is
the...
50 acres, townhouses, what I'm reading is
It's-
very concerning to me. And, you know, it's
Go ahead,
just,
Judge.
and I just think that it's going to be a tax on our resources.
If I may,
Yes.
just one point, everything that as the mayor laid out, I mean, that is exactly the future that we're looking at, 80% of the town restricted against development. But one other thing just to remember, as I mentioned before, this is part of the town settlement agreement. We have external factors that we have no control over and have to either respond to or ignore at, I'll say, our peril, because if the town has already gone through a builder's remedy lawsuit in the past, and it's the Woodfield development, and that's a density, and I'm not casting aspersions on the development, but that's at a density of it's close to 12 units an acre, as I recall. Just a couple of thoughts. We had an affordable housing obligation for the next 10 years. We started out with an obligation of 1,246 units. We negotiated that down to 643 units. We applied almost 400 units of our existing inventory. So and when the mayor looked at this and we said, let's look at this area and see if we can address our balance of 200 some units, and that's what we're looking to do. We're coming in, as I mentioned before, at a residential density in this ordinance of 6 units an acre, which that may sound like a lot, but it's nothing. The apartment complexes in town are 12 units an acre. Woodfield is almost 12 units an acre. So that's this is half the density that those projects would be. And just another point, if the town does not act proactively, it runs the risk of being sued again.
I didn't bring up the COA aspect. We have an obligation to build almost 700 units, Chuck, in total. In our third run, it may have gone to 200 because we had been proactive from the get-go. We've always been very good, but we have an obligation to build another 250 low-income, moderate-income housing under our COA obligation.
Isn't the one on Route 206, on Route 46, the new?
No.
No.
We've been very proactive in terms of our COA obligation because we went through a period where we got sued and Woodfield resulted from it. I live there, I love living there. But ultimately what happens is if you don't meet your obligation, the builder has the right to come in and basically usurp the local zoning. So we come in at 6, we satisfy our COA obligation on the north side of Route 46 in the trade zone, and we avoid those property owners coming in later and saying, you didn't meet your COA obligation, and therefore we're going to come in not at 6 units per acre, but at 12 or 15 units per acre to fulfill. So ultimately, there is going to be residential over there because 80% of the town can't be built on. That's the only area that can be built on. So we've taken a proactive approach, both in terms of revenue generation and to fulfill our COA obligation down the road.
Well, I want to, for the businesses, as a business owner, you should really put it in the ordinance that they have a big buffer. Because when you're running a business, you've got trucks in and out or machinery going, you need that buffer from the residences. And, they might go in there, they might look at their house when the business is closed and not realize that the business makes noise. And you really should have it written into the thing. I'm a business owner. I've had a business for 30 years, and I feel for you guys. Okay, so, but I'm still concerned. I hope that I can stay living in this town. My kids can't afford to live in this town, but I hope that I can afford to, and my friends can afford to.
I don't disagree with you. 7th year in a row that I'm introducing a budget that has no tax increase on the municipal side.
Well, I wish I would see a tax decrease.
Yeah.
When we had the assessment, my taxes doubled. So I had to get another job. So that's where I still am at.
Let me explain. So first of all, tax decreases are not good financial planning from a municipal perspective. But leaving that aside, for me to reduce your taxes by $100, which I'm not minimizing, but certainly wouldn't change your tax. I'd have to cut $1 million out of my budget, which I don't have that kind of discretionary dollars. So the effort really is to maintain what we have, to do some improvements through creative financing, and to plan out as long into the future as I can not to increase taxes, which we haven't done at all. So yes, you know what, I probably could reduce your taxes by $100, not much more than that, but ultimately you would end up seeing an increase in your taxes somewhere down the road because we try and smooth out those instances. And there are so many different factors that come into what we do: healthcare costs, liability costs for the township, things which are totally employee costs. What's that?
Maintenance?
Maintenance.
Yeah, we went through that.
Yeah, I mean, pension costs that are passed along by the state of New Jersey. I mean, the discretionary dollars that we have are very limited.
I run a business,
Yeah.
I understand.
So
But
I would love
just
I would love to be able to
appreciate
decrease taxes too. It's not the right thing. It wouldn't change most people's lot in Mount Olive for me to reduce their taxes by $100 and cut $1 million out of my budget somewhere.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any? Yep. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dina DeHaven. I live at 56 Village Green, Apartment H in Bud Lake. I'm concerned with the mandatory affordable housing provision. While I appreciate that we're going to meet that in the town, there's a part of it that allows the developer to elect to locate the required properties on separate lots, possibly from the other regular units. I think that's potentially discriminatory. Why separate the low-income lots from a regular lot?
The value in having the flexibility is actually in years past, Council on Affordable Housing, COA, had language in their regulations or their rules discouraging that kind of a practice, not prohibiting it, but discouraging it. But we found that the actual developers of the affordable housing want to be separate. For example, Marvelin Crescent. Toll Brothers developed the site, but Marvelin Crescent is owned by a separate company, Community Investment Strategies. And what they do, they are specialists in affordable housing in New Jersey. They own and they operate their own facilities. And they have an extremely good reputation, and we're very glad to have them. So it's important for them to have their own parcel of land that they own, separate and apart from the fee simple lots that are part of Toll Brothers development. The other reason is there are times, and again, Marvin Crescent is an example, and the project which is starting construction, Route 46, will be another one. There are times when the affordable units are in a different kind of housing type. For example, they're in a 3-story apartment type of unit, whereas the rest of the project are townhomes. So you can't really blend them together. And it's just the nature of who's building affordable housing, what kind of units that they're inclined to. We can't just tell people you've got to make every 5th or every 8th townhouse an affordable unit. We don't have that authority to do that. So what we're trying to do is create a situation where certainly we don't want to discriminate against low and moderate income household communities, and they're designed, and I think you'll see this with Marvin Crescent, for example. That project, they have a direct, in addition to the tot lot, they have a direct walkway into the town park. So, they're free to wander and walk and play and ride their bikes and whatever in the rest of the development. So I don't think it's restricted in the sense that people get that perception. A lot of times there's a legal reason to separate the properties.
And with regard to Marveland, I remember that there was this extreme financing situation that they needed to go to the state on to get
exactly
the
right.
financing. And if it had not been on one parcel of land, the financing would have been a complete nightmare. And I think that we've shown a track record, because every development that we have approved over the last, 15 years, 20 years, has had a 20% set aside for affordable and moderate housing, and nowhere in town is there a development where it's discriminatory in terms of the way that it was set up. It was set up logistically for various reasons. And I know that, ultimately it goes before the planning board as well, and the planning board looks at the issue. So I would suggest that when it comes up, if you really have an interest in terms of, and I guess you do, where the affordable housing is going to be located on any particular application, then that would be the place to actually look at it, understand the reasoning why it's done that way, and to make suggestions at that point, which I'm sure that the planning board would view very positively.
Are the current low-income housing units separate now, or are they blended in?
I can tell you at Marveland, they're separate. They're going to be separate at Mountain Ridge. Separate at Woodfield.
And
Yeah, they're
Morris
separate at
Chase?
Woodfield.
And they're separate.
Do you know
at Morris
Woodfield
Chase,
at all?
yeah?
No. If you come in off of Drakestown Road into Woodfield, where Camelot, the sign Camelot is, those houses, the housing units, when you first come in, that are more of an apartment style condo, those are the affordable housing. And I can tell you that although they're low and moderate income, they're not built that way. They're all built, they're beautiful facilities, they're nice units. Generally, the people have incomes, probably somewhere in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, I guess. And they're well maintained because they're run separately as by different owners than the people who actually develop the properties.
It just seems, I guess I don't know as much about it, but it still seems like it's, segregating the low income. It just bugs me.
I understand your concern, but I think you have to really understand the way in which they get built, the nature of the financing, the way that they're run, and they're not going to be the same type of units, as Chuck explained, that are in the market rate area of any particular development. So you can't really put a 3-story condo, KHAV kind of building in with, other two-story houses. It would
And I
just
guess
look
there's
kinda
no
odd.
possibility of just building them all the same.
I don't think that's the way that it generally gets done in practice. But again, I'm not an expert on affordable housing. I would suggest that when the applications come up, you go to the planning.
I'll
It should be
continue to
interesting.
research it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Susan Caulfield. I live at 17 Chickadee Road in Bud Lake, New Jersey. I've lived here since 2001. My husband's a retired firefighter from Newark Fire Department, and I work at the Mount Olive High School. I work for the Board of Ed. I would like to ask for clarification on the part of the ordinance that says quasi-public use. I'm not really understanding that directly. And I also want to have some kind of numbers that we've looked at maybe about the implications of a gated community here in Mount Olive, that's also in the paperwork.
Quasi-public is generally houses of worship, things of that nature, clubs, social clubs. That's true. Public being municipal buildings, libraries, schools. So quasi-public is in that other kind of category. That's a sort of a traditional zoning definition.
A hospital?
Hospital.
You use those specifics as the category?
Yes, in zoning, what we do, I can get the ordinance in front of me, but if that's among the uses that we call permitted principal uses, that means, for example, take for example, if the BASF building, call it that, but it's empty now. It's been empty for 13 years, by the way, and doing nothing for the town up there. But if that building were renovated, as the study recommends, there could be a component of it that's a health clinic, for example, and that would be a quasi-public use. And so if the developer came in and said, I've got 900,000 square feet of building here, I'm going to divide it up, I'm going to have some apartments, I'm going to have some retail, I also would like to have a small health center, maybe a rehab center or whatever it may be, then the planning board at that time would not be faced with a situation of saying to that developer, well, wait a minute, you can't do that there, you need to get a use variance, and it becomes a more difficult and protracted process. Quasi-public uses are considered generally to be very compatible with these kinds of developments because, again, it's the sort of thing that we all use. As a rule. It might be a small, like I said, it might be a mayor said hospital, a small health clinic. It might be, they might even build in some kind of a, like I said, a house of worship or something of that nature. And you mentioned something else, but I can't remember.
About the gated.
Well, it doesn't specifically say it will be a gated community. That's an option that's open to any developer. I've never encountered an ordinance that says you cannot do it, but I'll defer to attorneys on that question. There are a number of developments that choose to become gated communities, and that again is another reason why sometimes the affordable units are separated out, because the market units choose to limit access to the area, and that's their right.
So if it's only maybe going to be covered in these plans, we don't do any research on the implications of if they choose to do something like that? What the impact would have?
Gated community or
Yeah.
quasi?
The gated community. Or any of the other things that you say you don't really know who's going to be there, or if they're going to do this, or if they're going to do that.
I think I do. I think you're saying, why are we putting all of these, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you're saying, why are we putting all these different possibilities, although I don't think we say anything about gated community. I don't use that term in ordinances, so I don't recall that being in there, but you're saying, if you allow for all these different possibilities, I guess your question is, why are we doing it?
No, my question is, do we research what the impact on the community would be if they choose to do any of the possibilities that we're going to allow them to do?
Yes. I mean, that's why you have a master plan. And the master...
That's my question, is what's the...
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Well, it's not. I can't tell you what the impact of a gated community. Marvelin Farms down there will be a gated community to the market units. There'll be a gate, literally a gate, and they will have controlled access. The affordable units, of course, are separate and apart from them, so they will not. Will the resident? Excuse me.
The place you're talking about, where is that?
It's right across from the county golf course on Pleasant Hill Road. It's the new development going on now, Regency at Flanders. So it's a development, it's the old horse farm down there, and track. So the fact that the 200-some homes that'll be market units in there will be accessed only through a gate and controlled by that community, I don't think it affects the town at all. As a matter of fact, the mayor mentioned earlier, the town got a substantial amount of open space on the other side of Drake's Brook down there, which is dedicated open space and free and available to all residents. I think you're doing horse training or something down there at one
We've
point.
rented out the horse facility, so it becomes a revenue source for the township.
So you don't think that we haven't done any research or
Research
looked
is-
into anything? We don't have an existing gated community here.
Well, I can tell you
So
this.
we don't-
The question is really kind of an unfair question, I'll tell you why. Let's look at an area which is zoned as industrial. Any type of industrial business can come in. There's no real way to do research into what one particular business would do versus another particular business. What I can tell you is that if they came in with a concept of a gated community, it would go through a full examination by the planning board who looks at a particular application. We here, and I'm excluding myself because I am not a member of the governing body by statute, but the governing body, which is the town council, through the recommendations of my office, which is the administration, we attempt to conform the zoning consistent with the master plan that's adopted and modified by the township over a number of years. So this particular ordinance is consistent with the master plan which is in place. Ultimately, any particular issue, whether or not it be a health clinic, whether it be a church, whether it be a gated community, that the applicant is going to come in with would go through a full vetting process by the planning board with public discussion and ultimately a vote by an autonomous body, which is the planning board. So that's really how the process works. There's no way to really do research to find out whether or not a gated community in some fashion would change anything having to do with the way that the town operates. It's kind of like Panther Valley. I don't know that Panther Valley changes anything in Alamucci in terms of the way that...
But you don't know, he doesn't think. I'm just asking, for the research, if there's...
Where would you go to get the research? And what would you look at?
Well, you would look at other places that had not had gated communities, and then they have gated communities, and any effects that would have had,
Chuck?
any complaints they would have had, any legal ramifications.
I can tell you that I have done this this will be 30 years this year, and I've done it in a number of places, places that are rural, places that are urban, including Hoboken. Gated community in and of itself really has no impact on the municipality. If a gated community, if the zoning, first of all, if the master plan anticipates residential development of some kind or another at some density or another, and establishes that there are locations where that's appropriate, whether the access to those particular streets and homes are controlled by a gate is really, to me, is of no consequence to the township. If a gated community is designed such a way that it impedes public access from points on the perimeter to trails and the like, as the lady was speaking earlier, that's a different issue. But that's not going to happen here. We're very clear about where the open space is going to, we're very clear that there has to be open space commitments, and we're certainly aware of the Morris Canal's significance, which is why there's a buffer built in, and we're certainly clear that there's trails to the state parks up there. So all of that's going to be developed in. As far as, one could have maybe it's an interesting conversation, I'm not sure sometimes. With planning it does get a little tedious, but we could say, we could debate whether gated communities are a good social procedure or not, but really it has no bearing in my judgment in terms of the development of the township.
Well, what I would like to say is that I really appreciate the time that you've given and taken, your experience and sharing and guiding me in learning, how some of these things work. And I am a taxpaying citizen of this town, And I do want to have some input on how it goes forward in the future. I may not have been that participatory in the past, but I'm at a point now where I do have some time on my hands. And I also want to share with you that in these explanations, how beneficial it is to you, because we will take these explanations and share them with our friends who don't know the explanations and may just be assuming things, because it's not easy to get explanations of things. And we hope that that just helps to make our town better, And we're going to try to work with you guys, and we're going to have a voice in this town, and we have our own ideas about how we would like for it to go. And that's why I brought that up about the gated community. It's not, I don't really care if we have a gated community or not, but I would like for our town to go in a certain way, and it's certainly not about gated communities. But that would certainly be okay with me too, if we could develop that land. But we're not gonna, we want to understand what's going on, and maybe that would help us be more a part of the town. And we will be trying to learn more, and hopefully trying to help the town council in any way that we can. Thank you.
I have certainly made myself available to the residents to come and speak, to let you know what I know, to let you know why certain decisions are made. I put it out there that you'd let me know. I'll come with a bottle of wine. We'll sit down and we'll talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about in town. I recognize that almost everybody in this room is either a Mount Olive taxpayer, resident, business owner, and everybody's got a stake in the game, no more so than anybody sitting up here. So, yeah.
Thursday this week, planning board.
Podium.
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 Your words need to be recorded. Sorry.
This Thursday night, in this room, 7 o'clock, planning board will be going over the housing element and fair share plan. So it is going to be riveting, and I invite everyone to come. But it will be informative, I hope. So for those folks who are interested in these numbers that we're throwing around here, that will be a good forum to attend if you're interested.
Thursday night, what time? 7?
7 o'clock, yes.
Okay, well, I would like to say that I appreciate that invitation, and as riveting as this meeting has been, and the ones that I have, with my limited time, been able to attend, that probably scheduling, I know that you guys have spent many, many more hours than us, devoted to this town, but that doesn't, minimize what I feel like I can do and what I'm trying to do at this point in time. So if I can make it Thursday night, I'll be here. If not, maybe someone could stream that live to my house, and I would watch it and be a part of that, even if I can't physically be here. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that with the Regency and the Marvel and Crescent, no one's mentioned this part of it, but the Regency is a 55 and older community, so it has restrictions right then and there. And one of the reasons why the other, Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, and the reason why it's over there because they don't meet the requirements of 55 and over. And also you would want to have, if I was 55 and older and I was spending nearly $1 million on one of those houses, I would like to have a gated community also, because the idea is it's 55 and older. And so that's just one point that I wanted to bring out. And the other thing I would like to say is that when I first got involved in politics and elected to the council, I went to the planning board meetings, and Chuck probably saw me there lots of times. I went every single meeting. I learned so much. It was incredible. Well, and it's just something that's where you can come to council meetings. You're always welcome, of course. But when you want to learn about why things are done the way they're done, and why one property is built on the other one isn't, it's the planning board. It's very, very informative. And Chuck I've known Chuck, 30 years now, I guess. And Chuck has been so informative. It's like any questions you have, Chuck is the guy to go to, and you really get a good understanding of what makes the town. One last thing I just want to say is another thing the mayor was talking about. If you want to have your taxes reduce, you cut taxes, you lose services. But the other way to keep our taxes stable is to bring in revenue. And that's what some of these projects that they're working on, you're bringing in revenue. There's two, a tax point is, what is it, Cherry, 300 and something thousand?
300,000, Colleen.
How much?
300,000.
300,000 even. So in order to keep our taxes the same or reduce them at all or make good use of our money, we have to either bring in 300,000 in revenue or we have to lose services. We tried that a few years back when an attempt was made to reduce the staff, to bring down a point, which ended up not working out so good because then they had to pay unemployment, and the staff that was let go took care of a lot of the maintenance. A couple years later, we were spending a couple $100,000 in repairs to our structures, our buildings, because we didn't have anybody taking care of them. So all these things, I know before I got involved, I thought a lot of the same things that you ladies are thinking, and then once I got involved, I realized that I didn't know the depth of it. I didn't understand each part of it. We all work very hard to do the best job possible to make our community as good as it can possibly be, and we like to take suggestions and invite anybody to come and let us know what your thoughts are, but please don't think that we're just doing things to, there's no fast roads here. We're just trying to do a good community. That's
Mr.
it.
Mania, did you have something?
Just a point of information. Originally, Mountain Ridge, the development that's going on Route 46, that was approved as 55 and older. And when the owner couldn't market it, he went to the New Jersey legislature, and they said he could come back to the planning board, and we could rethink about a 55 and older community. So that's why it's not 55 and older anymore. The New Jersey legislature allowed him to do that.
Thank you. And thank you all. We do appreciate your comments and concerns, and it's good. Any questions always help us as well to get the feedback from everybody. We do appreciate it. Does anyone else wish to be heard on this? Oh, go ahead. Yes, you do.
I wanted to make two comments. Woodfield, the apartments that are the 3-story apartments, I have been there this summer, and I noticed that the concrete was flaking off there. And, I saw a difference between the townhomes and those apartments. I didn't realize until tonight that those were the low-income units. So I would suggest that you look at the concrete work there, because I thought that it was perhaps could be dangerous at one time, where you go up the stairs in the middle. Another thing about gated communities, my son-in-law is from St. Louis, and it's full of those gated communities. And I really don't think it's a good idea. You have to drive around to find the entrance to where you want to be. And it's just, it closes people off from each other. And I don't really see a benefit to a gated community. For the over 55, I can sort of see that. My parents lived at Fox Hills for a little time. But I don't really, see a benefit for that. That's all for me. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Seeing none on that ordinance, I close to the public. Dawn, do you have something to add to the ordinance?
Yes, a very small typographical change does not change the substance of the ordinance in the least. On page 12, paragraph B, on the third line down, it references subsection Roman numeral 3. That should be a reference to paragraph C below it. When the revisions were being made, this one reference was not caught. So it's been made, it's been corrected, it's been provided to the clerk, so you have the final good version. And as I said, it does not change substantively this ordinance in the least.
Just a reference.
It's just a reference.
All right. Thank you. We had a discussion. I guess where am I? Roll call, please.
We need a second.
Oh, we needed a second. Who-
Second?
Okay. You- Yes, I'm sorry.
I did, I seconded it.
Second, Colleen
I
second.
retract my second.
Retract the second.
This is the third.
All right, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Ordinance number 24-17 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. We have 8 consent resolutions. Does anyone wish to move any to non-consent? Seeing none, does anyone from the public wish to be heard on any consent resolutions? Seeing none, close to the public. Mrs. Laybow, can you move consent
you.
resolutions 1 through 8?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move consent resolutions 1 through 8.
Second. Any council discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Mr. Mania, would you please move the bill list?
Yes, Mr. President. I move for the bill list.
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone from the public on the bill list? Seeing none, close to the public. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Abstain on check number 81560, yes to all others. Administrative reports. Mayor, Andrew, Claudia?
At 6:30 today, we had the public auction for 190 Tins Road. We did have a successful bidder, so there'll be a resolution in the next meeting finalizing that sale.
That's good. Anything else? That's it? Mayor, anything from administration?
I have something I want to add.
Okay.
Since the last council meeting, as many of you know, there was an incident in Mount Olive involving a person who went missing for the second time within a month period. I can tell you that I saw the best in Mount Olive during that time, both from the first responders, the police department, the community outreach in terms of the amount of food and water and carrots for the horses. Everyone just wanted to help. And in a trying time, it was nice to see that Mount Olive pulled together as a community. So just wanted to thank everybody who offered to help, who helped, and ultimately, God bless the family. And I hope that this is the last time that we have to do a missing person search in a long time.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any old business? Seeing none, any new business? Seeing none, any legal matters?
Yes, Mr. President. First of all, we just wanted to commend the council on adopting this ordinance 24-2017. It's very important, as discussed, to the affordable housing obligation and settlement, and also to the marketing and sale of the 57 acres that the township owns currently. This is a really successful year. We wrapped up, Cobblestone successfully with the help of Chuck McGroarty and the township professionals. We, as you know, are in the process of wrapping up the affordable housing litigation with a significantly reduced number. The railroad cars are gone from the railroads. There are no pending tax appeals right now against the township, so we had a really successful year. Our firm has enjoyed working with everybody here at the township. They're always very professional and helpful. We'd like to thank the mayor and council for your trust in and faith in us, and we just want to wish everyone a happy holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Council reports. Mr. Amion, anything on Board of Ed or seniors?
Yes. Board of Education held its regular meeting on Monday, December 18, 2017 at the middle school, 6:30 p.m. It was Mount Olive Department of Athletics 2017 Fall Sports Board of Education Award Ceremony. The board recognized team accomplishments of the students and coaches. The board also recognized the two board members who are not re-elected, were not were not re-elected. Dr. Larry Reynolds also praised Mount Olive High School and middle school choirs for representing the district at Carnegie Hall. Okay, that's the end of the Board of Education report. And on senior citizens liaison report, Senior Citizens Club held a special meeting today, December 18, 2017, at Senior Building. Next Senior Citizen Building meeting will be January 2nd, 2018. Best regards from senior citizens to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferrante, anything on environment, lake or library?
Nothing till next year.
Ms. Labo, anything on economic, TNR, or open space?
Just on open space, we had a request that anything that, any funds that are going to be utilized out of the open space account, if we could have, council could, and administration could bring the open space committee more in on the discussions. Yeah, because they're just want to be a little more active.
We already changed the, I believe it was the code, so that any expenditures from open space are done via resolution, so they are brought to your attention.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
The
you.
only
That's
thing
good.
that's a little bit different there is when we appropriate money from Open Space Trust to offset debt service, which gets run through the budget process. So you become aware of that through the budget process.
Perfect.
But any
Perfect.
other expenditures, we always approve by resolution.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. I'll let them know. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Maney, anything on legislative or planning?
No.
Health Department, tomorrow is at 6:30 here. It's bittersweet. It's my last health meeting as chair, as Colleen will be taking over that in January.
That'll be good.
But tomorrow, 6:30 here will be that meeting, the final one of the year. Mr. Roman, anything on Rec or Pride?
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Stewart, anything on MOTV or community action?
Community Action did meet last week. We agreed on 2 different programs for 2018, one of which is driven by the state and county health departments, which is focused strictly on our 4 really big companies in town, and then also a regular program like we've done annually, which will be for the general community.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard now? Seeing none, close to the public. Any council comments? Mr. Amianda?
None.
Mr. Ferrante?
Just want to wish everybody a happy holiday and a happy and healthy new year.
Ms. Lebo?
Yes, I'd like to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Happy New Year, Happy Healthy New Year. The big emphasis on healthy.
That's true. Mr. Mania?
Happy and healthy holidays. God bless.
Mr. Stewart?
Echoing the happy holidays, and also thank you, Andrew, for the work he did on the recommendation for a video.
Mr. Roman?
I too would like to wish everyone here on council, the mayor, and the administration, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Look forward to continuing 2018 the way we've been doing 2017. I think all of us here have done a great job, and I especially appreciate the input from the public in helping us guide and make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, and a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays to all as well. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all.
I'm going to miss you for 2 months.